So for a seafaring campaign, my mind goes to like Star Trek. In terms of how to get the vibe, Zelda stories are pretty simple. I think to do a time travel campaign becomes a lot about what are the mechanics. Being a pacifist is going to give a lot more options for problem solving too. I think running my guild-based or my kind of guild-centric game is when I learned that I really like the idea of players having some sort of organization that they can recruit NPCs into. It became really fun in my game to introduce NPCs that the players could then choose, like in a very straightforward, almost video gamey way. This warlock here, or you've got this cleric here, and you can recruit one of them to your guild or to your faction, which one, and then that gives them some benefits to their organization, but also they sort of create their own. We call it a B team in my campaign, and sometimes we even run one shots with those characters. I'd never tried that before, except until this one game, and I'm really glad that I have. I am tempted to find a way to always have it in my games because it's really, really fun. Darkness, do you have any tips for running a Zelda-inspired game? So the shorter answer is if you wanted to do a game sort of in the world of Zelda, it's like pick your favorite game and then find a corner of the world and find a set of stories and adventures that you wish the games would do and they never do, and then create a situation where players can inhabit that world and do that, right? Maybe it intertwines with main Zelda stories, maybe it doesn't, but that would be really fun. In terms of how to get like the vibe, Zelda stories are pretty simple when all is said and done. It's more about the experience and the mechanics. In a TTRPG context, using that as inspiration, part of that question I would ask first is, which of the things are you wanting to use as inspiration? Because if it's the story, then that might actually make things a lot easier for you. You might actually be able to kind of focus way down and say, great, so in the first session, they're going to find out what their call to action is. They're going to find out what the threat is. There's going to be 4 or 5, dungeons or locations they need to master. They need to get the MacGuffin together. They need to that's a very, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but that's a very straightforward story where everything is sort of signposted and clear, and it's more about how the game is experienced through those beats is going to be where the fun comes. Not so much the discovery of the story, let's say, because it's super rare in a Zelda game to sort of be surprised by the existence of a dungeon, right? Usually you kind of know generally where they're going to be. So for a seafaring campaign, my mind goes to like Star Trek. Every island, every landmass is Twilight Zone almost. Like it's a place to visit and a strange culture and a strange people to encounter and to react to and to deal with, and then back on the ship and going again. The ship is the home base and the internal drama. So you've got spending money to upgrade the ship, or dealing with revolts or complaints, or stowaways, like all those types of like inside the ship issues. That's where my mind goes. Surplus, a campaign where every player is a pacifist. Totally. I mean, assuming that them being pacifists is what they want to do. Yeah, I mean, being a pacifist is going to give a lot more options for problem solving too, because you're going to keep a lot more people alive. There are some settings and some ideas for games that would almost require it. If you want to run like a small town investigation campaign, like you can't have the players running around killing everybody or run out of characters, right? If not to end the enemy's life, it could be that there's something that they need to be cured or they need to be corrected. Like it's not necessarily killing them, but it's killing what's controlling them. Let's say could be a shadow force. I'm thinking of almost like Alan Wake or something like that. Another one of my players' favorite NPCs is which they have I think recently recruited, if I remember correctly. But he's an inventor dwarf that his inventions always kind of fail, kind of like Doc Brown. I mean, that's not true. Doc Brown made a time machine. What am I doing here? Besmirching the good name. Where do I even get the nerve to do such a thing? Yeah. We also saw Doc Brown at his best. We didn't see Doc Brown through all the years that got him his tough reputation. We were spared a lot of that. Those treatments are done. Those scripts are written. It's just a matter of business at the studio going badly enough for like 3 quarters in a row, and then here it comes. What would it be? Would they just call it Doc? They'd probably just call it no. They'd probably call it Great Scott. Would that be too on the nose? It is fun thinking about like creative poison sometimes. Like, okay, let's think like a monster, because somebody somewhere, the people who are asked, generally speaking, the people who are asked to do this stuff are people who want to do good things, right? But they're just like sitting there going like, I gotta pay my bills, I gotta take this gig, and they want me to do another treatment on this Doc Brown prequel series that they want to put on Paramount Plus or whatever garbage shovel content. They've already shot 3 episodes. I don't know what they need from me. I feel like my vault of Back to the Future knowledge goes back enough that I can think of something really. I didn't know that I've been training for this moment. Who's going to be at the end of the first episode? Who walks in? It's like when Tuco shows up in Better Call Saul, right? There's going to be that moment where somebody opens the door. It's Principal Skinner. We didn't know that they were best friends. We didn't know that Skinner and Doc actually were the first Doc and Marty. Wow, I gotta sign up for Paramount Plus now. That's a done deal. I gotta do that. Surplus, that's a great idea. I can do you one better. Or along those lines, Adventure Zone. The Adventure Zone, which is a kind of a comedy D&D show. It's the My Brother and Me guys, the McElroy brothers. It was Griffin's campaign. He ran the first one. I think he's absurdly talented at it, for having never done it before. That game, as far as I know, the arc is called The 11th Hour, and it's about a town caught in a time loop. And I've once now shamelessly ripped that off for an arc in my campaign. It's a really, really good starting point. Surplus, making a time loop one-shot is already tough with me just thinking on how to do it, because I probably want the main stuff to be pretty quick so they can quickly go through loops to find the new stuff. Once the players accomplish something, let them basically zoom past that on subsequent loops. When I ran this, it was a town in the Feywild, and it was a particularly quirky town, and there was a construct sheriff that was the first one to greet them as they approached, and he was basically a social encounter that they had to get past. And that took them, in my case, it was just an hour time loop. So it took them a chunk of that hour in game to do that. The next time they came through, I told them, hey, if you want to basically do the same thing with him that you did last time, we can skip past it. And that's basically what I established for them as they played through the time loop, was that if there are things that you've already done, you can just say, we do that. It sort of lets you cut through stuff without having to redo, because that would get really tedious. That wouldn't be fun. It also allows the players to begin to feel like they're really mastering this time, right? Like Groundhog Day. Like by the end of it, they're like, oh, okay, so we'll go save that guy, and then we do this, then we do this. It was even played for a joke at one point, because the players were going through an insanely booby-trapped cavern system, and so there was a person leading them, and they're like, okay, I rolled to find it, and it's like, okay, so you rolled to pick the right step, and they kept failing. I think we counted they failed like dozens of times, but each time they're like, well, we just do all the same stuff to get back here again. It was really just like a 5-minute joke in the game of like, okay, you guys do this, keep rolling. Okay, we just kind of kept a tally. It's like, yeah, you guys blew these caves up this many times, but now you know exactly the sequence to go through. I think to do a time travel campaign becomes a lot about what are the rules, what are the mechanics, what's the justification for that sort of premise, right? And it could be that times can be impacted, but maybe in a limited number of ways, or it's really, really risky to go back, but you're hopping through like the history of a world, let's say. That could be cool. Yeah, I think the interesting question too is everything looping, or is their experience of it looping? Because in Groundhog Day, he's the only one that's aware, and I think that that extra ability, or whatever you want to call it, like the fact that if the players are special, then that gives you the in to sort of attach whatever other specific abilities they may have. They've sort of become time gods, for the length of time that they're able to do that. Like, they're really, really powerful. Tyler, can you give me some help? Hopefully. I'm going to run the final battle with Strahd. I do not love pre-made campaigns, but my players love the idea to set in a Western just to switch it up a bit. A Western Strahd is a fun idea, by the way. Mostly ideas on the battle structure, what he should say, dynamic environments. He's holed up in an old Spanish mission that he fortified. Maybe it's a battle that has multiple phases, so it could start in the structure of the Spanish mission. Maybe they've got to sneak their way in and find their way, and then he's just addressing them in the courtyard. But maybe then the next phase, it dives down into the catacombs underneath. They got to chase him down, or they've got to deal with people that he's trying to use to slow them down while he races ahead, and maybe that leads them up out of underground into a waiting train that he now climbs on and rides away. And maybe the final battle with Strahd happens fighting him, thinking back to Uncharted 2, right? A fight on a train as it starts to fall apart. Give Strahd actions and abilities that he can use that trigger based on when he hits a certain amount of health. One big health bar, and then here he is at 50%, 75%, 25%, and each one of these points triggers something. You could do separate refilling health bars. So he's got health, and then once this expires, then it kicks into the health that activates during the chase, or resets when he gets to the train. Maybe part of his reason for breaking off is to give himself a few rounds of regeneration so he gets some of that back. However you want to call it, I think, especially with big bosses, players, I think, really want there to be phases. They want it to be a dynamic fight. Train fight with a vampire just as the sun rises. That's a great idea. It's also a fun opportunity. The train tracks kind of run up next to one another, and this is a little bit cheesy. It depends on how your game works. But maybe riding up alongside the train is another train that has people, NPCs, that are friendly to the party, that are here to help and can bring supplies, or they're on the train car that's about to explode and they can dive off into the neighboring train car. Like, that could be really fun. I don't know if Strahd carries on a lot of the vampire things or whatever, but maybe there's a way that they could trigger the train tracks to switch and send it out over send the train over running water, which could weaken him for a round or something like that. That could be part of it. They just need to keep Strahd from escaping and hiding in the train. If they take out all the windows, maybe then the sun can get him or whatever. I don't know. There's definitely ways to play around with that. Your last question here, Budley. My players are really close to beefing final encounter of our 7-year campaign. Holy cow. The big bad is about to rewrite time if they fail. Should we play it out in a new campaign? That's a heavy question to end on, but I really like it. Without knowing anything else about your game, the big bad is about to rewrite time. The rewriting of time and the undoing of everything begins to happen if the players have the choice to stop the big bad at the cost of effectively themselves being written out of time. If they become sort of forgotten heroes, they still lose, but they find, technical victory in their loss. I think I'm not sure that I could pass up, if it's going to be some kind of timey-wimey stuff, I'm not sure I could pass up at least possibly providing that type of out. That'd be a heavy one for players, right? Like, are they willing to sacrifice that, right? But man, that'd be compelling. That'd be a hell of a story that nobody could ever know, right? Love it. I love thinking about that stuff. Thanks for the question. And now you have to come back and tell us whatever ends up happening or whatever you choose to do, because that sounds super, super compelling. These were all clips from my live streams. I stream crafting projects, planning sessions, and recently deep dives into characters using mini painting. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments so I can know if I should make more like it. And one of the best ways you can help out this channel is to watch another one of my videos right after this one. The algorithm seems to really like that. I keep my stream schedule updated on my website, so you can see when I'm planning to go live. There's also an email list there. I don't use it, but if I ever make something worth sending an email about, that's where I'll send it.